the Revolution of 1789 finally came to an end after a series of violent protests, war, and decapitation. 1793. The exact year the head of King Louis XVI rolled on the floor, while angry Parisians watched and rejoiced over the end of monarchy and a violent revolution to liberty. Unfortunately, the French Revolution did not end for another 6 years. From the beginning of the year 1789, France shocked the world and demonstrated that a hungry people is an angry mob. This is the story of how the French Revolution came to an end. The oath and attack of the Bastille. In 1686, a tennis court was built for the royal family at the Versailles Palace. It became more than just any sports hall when members of the French Third Estate convened and took the tennis court oath. The National Assembly, which was formed by the Third Estates, had no choice but to meet at the Royal Tennis Court to discuss political matters. King Louis XVI ordered the palace guard to close the hall where members of the newly formed National Assembly were supposed to meet, claiming it was being prepared for a royal speech, which was a lie, a historical lie. In a rush of desperation and fear, Joseph Ignace Guillotin, a member of the National Assembly and creator of the guillotine used for execution, suggested they meet in a nearby tennis court, where 575 members took a revolutionary oath. We swear never to separate ourselves from the National Assembly and to reassemble wherever circumstances require until the constitution of the realm is drawn up and fixed upon solid foundations. The National Assembly, whose establishment the king opposed, was set up to ensure the development of the French Constitution and the abolition of monarchy. Citizens, there is no time to lose. The dismissal of Necker is the knell of a St. Bartholomew for patriots. This very night, all the Swiss and German battalions will leave the Champ de Mars and massacre us all. One recourse is left: to take arms. These were the exact words of Camille Desmoulins, while he admonished more than 10,000 Frenchmen at the Palais Royal, a place where the people always met with the National Assembly. King Louis XVI made a huge mistake when he dismissed and banished the financial minister, Jacques Necker, who was loved by the commons because he had them at heart. They interpreted Necker's dismissal as a threat and confirmation that it was time to stage a coup against the king, due to how poorly he ruled and made decisions. The enraged mob marched through the streets of France with little armory, and despite escaping the sharp jaws of death at the hands of the Royal German Cavalry Regiment, they refused to back down. They were hungry, angry, and ready to die, even with a gun pointed at their belly. That night, they broke into Saint Lazare, the clergy's store, and took as much wheat as they could find, which they then took to the public market, and even the royal troops couldn't stop the chaos the people caused. They stole from the church and got away with it. On July 13th, Lafayette ordered 48,000 men from the bourgeois militia to restore peace, changing the military's group name to the National Guard. The next day, a crowd gathered at the Bastille, a royal fortress used to house criminals. They demanded that the ammunition in the fortress be released to them, or they would have to use force. This event resulted in a bloodbath between the people and the Bastille's defenders. A lot of civilians died, but because of their size, they were stronger, which resulted in the execution of the governor of the Bastille, Marquis de Launay, whose head was placed on a spike like a round flag and paraded through the streets. Surprisingly, this wasn't even the Reign of Terror. Let's make terror the order of the day. Bertrand Barrère was one of the prominent members of the National Convention, which was formed after the insurrection of the 10th of August, 1792, that led to the abolition of monarchy and the establishment of the French Republic. Bertrand Barrère demanded on September 5, 1793, at a meeting of the National Convention, that terror be made the order of the day in order to protect the newly formed French Republic. The Sans-Culottes, an army of the commons who stood up as a group dedicated to ensure the French Revolution was a success at all costs, agreed with Bertrand and petitioned the convention that indeed terror was the only way to a fulfilled French Revolution. The members of the National Convention were trying to avoid violence, so they agreed to form a revolutionary army to combat any opposition to the revolution. But since France wasn't a restaurant, they never agreed to make terror the order of the day. This was of great concern to King Louis XVI, who took actions that added fuel to the reign of terror. France declared war on the 20th of April 1792, when the people heard the declarations made by Austria and Prussia. It was declared that they would intervene and restore the French monarch only if other European nations joined. They did not, however, wait for other nations. They were too anxious and couldn't wait to kill, so they launched the war with France, defeating the Revolutionary Army and instilling fear in the Frenchmen. In September 1792, France won its first victory against foreign invaders, who instigated the rise of violent behavior among the Republicans, as a result of their invasion of the people of France. This pressure from the foreign army resulted in the height of the Reign of Terror, the arrest and execution of those who opposed the revolution. On February 21, 1793, King Louis XVI was tried and found guilty by the revolutionaries, leading to his execution by guillotine. 9 months later, his wife, Marie Antoinette, was also executed by guillotine in the presence of the people. The guillotine was the most popular machinery for execution. It was believed to be painless because the head would just fall off like a mango. When news of King Louis XVI's death reached other monarchs, they were enraged and formed the First Coalition, which included Russia, Austria, Prussia, Spain, Holland, and Sardinia, attacking one country, France. After a while, France had returned to normalcy, but not the National Assembly. The National Assembly was divided into two groups, the Montagnards and the Girondins, both of whom desired the end of monarchy in France, but had opposing views on how to carry out the revolution. In the National Convention, the Montagnard legs couldn't touch the ground because they sat on the highest benches, while the Girondins sat on the lower benches. The Girondins desired a better political system free of violence, while the Montagnards believed in using violence to solve political problems. This disagreement caused havoc in the National Assembly and kept France in an unstable state. The fall of the monarchy meant the fall of the clergy. The doctrine of divine rights is a phenomenon that occurs during the reign of kings. This means that a king is predestined to rule from birth. Many rights were taken away from the church by the revolutionaries and given to the states. The church no longer had the right to comment on matters concerning France's rulership, and it even almost got dissolved. April 6, 1793. The National Assembly formed the Committee of Public Safety, a revolutionary army that fought the First Coalition and slaughtered anyone who opposed the French Republic. They were tasked with overseeing the Reign of Terror that resulted in the arrest of over 300,000 suspects and the decapitation of 17,000 heads. On June 2, 1793, a petition was presented to the National Assembly requesting that the 27 Girondins who were attempting to prevent violence be arrested. They were executed, sparking one of the most fierce battles within the walls of the French Republic. Maximilien Robespierre was an important figure that contributed greatly to the Reign of Terror. He was elected to the Great Committee of Public Safety, which was in charge of apprehending those who opposed the revolution. Robespierre was a corrupt man who executed anyone who opposed France. But some of these people were not guilty, they were simply his enemies. Anyone he hates gets their head chopped off. Thermidorian reaction. The end of the Reign of Terror and the violent revolution is marked by the Thermidorian reaction. Maximilien Robespierre and other violent revolutionaries in the National Convention were apprehended and executed on July 28, 1794. People saw what the Reign of Terror had done to the country and decided to revolt against its continued presence in the political structure. Following the Girondins' dominance of the National Convention, France's first bicameral legislature was established on August 22, 1795. A 5-member directory was established to manage the executive's affairs, but they were unable to do so effectively and lost power to the general of the French army, Napoleon Bonaparte, who ruled France with great wisdom and brought the Great French Revolution to an end. Maybe it wasn't great wisdom, he just fed the hungry mob. During France's revolutionary movement to break free from the clutches of monarchy, both lives and property were lost. But they got what they wanted in the end, didn't they? Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment, and until next time, bye.